his denunciation of sovereignty is especially chilling. Sovereignty, the right of nations to govern themselves, is a cornerstone of Western civilization. For a monarch who represents national identity and heritage to call for its erosion is both ironic and alarming. It challenges the very principles upon which modern nations are built. Does this signal the monarch aligning with the globalist elites, prioritising centralised control over the will of individual nations?
The current pandemic has brought unimaginable devastation to people's lives, livelihoods, and national economies. At the same time, the green recovery represents an unprecedented opportunity to rethink and reset the ways in which we live and do business. Now, I have long believed that we need a shift in our economic model that places nature and the world's transition to net zero at the heart of how we operate, prioritizing the pursuit of sustainable, inclusive growth in the decades to come. Having been championing climate action now for the last, 40 years, I can tell you that this isn't a fight for the faint-hearted. By leveraging market forces and the immense resources of the private sector, there is hope that we can transform the situation. But I'm afraid we are literally at the last hour, and there is real urgency for action. We know now what we have to do to rescue the situation, rather than going on talking about it.
According to Charles, the time for action has come. It's time for military-style campaigns, for sweeping measures that silence opposition. It's time to crush dissent and end the pretense of democracy in the West. It's time to abandon the values of freedom and accountability in favour of centralised control. No wonder Charles was the man to introduce the Great Reset to humanity, the WF agenda that calls for a complete overhaul of economies and societies in line with the chilling goals of the globalist elite.
We need nothing short of a paradigm shift, one that inspires action at revolutionary levels and pace. We simply cannot waste any more time. The only limit is our willingness to act. And the time to act is now.
Is the deleted Christmas message, brazenly calling for a one-world government, a glimpse into a future shaped by the elite? And who is best friends with notorious pederast Jimmy Savile, likes to present himself as the steadfast leader of the British people, the proud bearer of the royal legacy that has ruled the British Isles for centuries. But in reality, he's nothing more than a globalist sellout, an occultist, and a loyal servant to the elite. When they say jump, Charles doesn't hesitate. He asks how high. What does Charles have to hide? A mountain of evidence linking him and senior members of the royal family to institutionalised child abuse, according to whistleblowers. King Charles has been implicated in a massive decades-old paedophile ring at an elite British boarding school, according to revelations by a former student and whistleblower, who's blown the lid off the horrific scale of the elite's chosen vice. Aldenham School is run by the self-declared worshipful company of brewers, an ancient and deeply creepy group who take young children to initiation ceremonies at Brewers Hall, where they are abused and tortured. Brewers Hall in Hertfordshire just so happens to be the stomping ground for King Charles, with reports detailing visits by Charles and his friends Jimmy Savile and Lord Mountbatten. According to Chris Stevens, an award-winning journalist who attended the school as a boy, children at the elite school are routinely beaten, harassed, raped, and driven to suicide. Inevitably, with paedophilia, all roads lead to Rome. In this case, Rome's latest incarnation, the British royal family, who, in the words of Stevens, regularly visit Aldenham School to feed on children. As Stevens explains, the vice is so entrenched in British royal family tradition that the entire clan are unable to resist raping anything that smells like a child. Despite credible accusations, the police, judiciary and mainstream media continue to collude to cover up the allegations and stonewall any attempts to justice. Meanwhile, real children are being systematically abused by the elite paedophile ring, and yet no one seems to be doing anything to stop the cycle of pain and suffering that remains central to the agenda of the global elite.
Was Schicksalsdistanz, Schicksal.
Aber lebendes! Und die haben das doch aufgegessen! Und es waren dann nur noch Haare und alle
das jetzt auf Distanz. Jetzt. Stopp. Ja.
Berlin, die Praxis der Psychotherapeutin Dagmar Eckers. Das kleine Mädchen berichtet detailliert über Mord und Kannibalismus. Diese Taten liegen gerade ein Jahr zurück. Ihre Eltern haben der Aufnahme zugestimmt. Täter und Tatorte sind der Polizei bekannt. Einzelheiten sollen nicht veröffentlicht werden.